Dubrovnik, the pearl of the Adriatic, the biggest brand in Croatia, internationally, globally known as one of the top cities to visit in Europe. Also known even more famously in recent times as King's Landing, a part of the Game of Thrones location. This is a city which thrives on tourism and is really driven by tourism. But there is also another side of Dubrovnik, the living city, the people who actually live here. And today, rather than focusing on tourism, we're going to focus on what's actually happening in the city. Continuing our series, Croatia When the Glass is Half Full, we're here today in Dubrovnik, beautiful sunny day in late September. Why aren't you here? To look at 10 ways that Dubrovnik is improving as a city. And I'm delighted to welcome the Mayor of Dubrovnik, Mato Frankovic. One of the big challenges in somewhere like Dubrovnik is twofold really regarding accommodation. It's a big tourist town, so a lot of people are renting apartments, and so there's been an explosion there. And also it's become less and less affordable for young families from Dubrovnik trying to get accommodation and to get themselves on the property ladder. Say, what are you doing about that?
It's the hot topic as everywhere in Europe, and I would say even worldwide. We have to make a decision. And this will be, are we going to continue with the expansion of the apartment? And if we want to speak about sustainability, sustainable tourism, we cannot let anymore the growth of the apartments. Yeah. And we have to change the rules. So considering the city of Dubrovnik, of course that we are working on our special program of Dubrovnik housing, giving an apartments that are owned by the city of Dubrovnik for 10-year lease for lower rate. At the same time, we established a program that we call 30 times 30. It's 30,000 euros for each of the 30 families yearly in order to help them buy real estate. Also, what we are doing is creating a population of the old city by buying places that used to be places for rent and refurbishing them and giving them to the young families for the places to live in. And now we have 12 new kids living in the old city of Dubrovnik. Last year, the school here in the historical site of the city had 22 children in first grade. This year, we have 2 first grades, 42 children total. So the demographic situation about the old city is changing, and we are now in process of buying 3 more buildings, which we also will refurbish and give to the families to live for the period of 10 years.
One of the biggest challenges Dubrovnik faces is traffic management. This is a city which is extremely popular as a tourist destination, and it has its main attraction in a very confined space, the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is the Old Town. And the biggest concentration is here at Pile Gate. And as you can see, you have buses, you have taxis coming in. This is a city with a population of just 40,000 people, which currently has 9,000 taxis. Mayor Frankovic is now going to explain how he's dealing with that problem.
The traffic is a hot topic now for the years, especially after liberalization of car taxi industry. And after that, and that happened back in 2018, more than 9,000 taxi providers are here in Dubrovnik, 9,000. So we have to change things considering that first. So we are now in process of implementing a special driving zone around the old city in order to lower down the impact of the taxi cars on the quality of life, because at one point you have the streets that are completely blocked because all of those cars, especially in the raining days, want to come to the old city to bring the guests that want to come to the old city. You have the public transportation, but people, since the taxi are pretty much cheap nowadays, when you have 9,000 providers, so the price goes down, then people are using taxi instead of the bus. So we have to stop that. Our goal is to have 700 taxi drivers that will provide the service of car driving around the old city.
One of the challenges Dubrovnik faced as a tourist city is that there is a huge influx of tourists, and it's also a living city. And in order to meet the expectations and the needs of both local residents and tourists themselves, they come up with this program called Respect the City, which aims to try and meet the two needs in the middle. So let's hear a little bit more about that.
So we started back in 2017 with the program Respect the City. With this sending a message to all of those that are visiting Dubrovnik, but not just for them, for the citizens of Dubrovnik as well.
Yeah.
Because you have to respect the place where you are born at. So it's not a cash machine. It is a living city which we inherited, we have to preserve, and on the end of our lives we have to deliver to the new generation, not in the better manner or worse manner, but in better shape.
Yeah.
This is why we implemented program Respect the City. It continues out of all of those things that I already spoke about, considering the number of tourists, the flow of tourists, the quality of life within the old city. We implemented different projects, the sound measures within the old city, where we wanted to limit the noise outside that is coming outside of the bars, because we are aware that people, of course, have to enjoy it. It is summer, but not enjoy, but lowering down the quality of life, those that had to wake up in the morning and serve you.
Cities are obviously investing in the future in infrastructure and so on. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening with your investment in infrastructure in Dubrovnik?
Many infrastructural projects have been done in the last 7 years, especially considering the new roads that we built. The first one is actually the road from the bridge of Dr. Franjo Tuđman up to the area of Pobređe, and this is the area actually where we plan to develop park and ride system, but not just that. The new service area and the new shopping area, new living area. So that's why that road is very, very important for us. The other road that we also built is Lapatska Obala. Used to be a small, narrow road, the area that had a big problem with the floods. Now, after we built that Lapatska Obala, we can say that we created a new, not just a road, new area of Dubrovnik where people can gather, where people can walk, people can enjoy. The new coffee bars are open there, restaurants with beautiful terraces, beautiful views, unbelievable. Of course, we created also a nice pathway from the area where Hotel Neptune is, up to the Hotel Compass, also the new road up to the Serge mountain, to village of Bosanka. For 100 years, they didn't have normal road up to their home. Now, just 3 months ago, we finished the project and they can now normally drive to their homes and back. The elderly care is something which is very important for the city of Dubrovnik. We started with the project creating a new elderly home. We started with that project 6 years ago. The project on the end will cost 29 million euros. It's the biggest infrastructure project in Dubrovnik that has been carrying on for the last more than 30 years. The last home for elderly people was built in Dubrovnik back in 1971. The new one will be the capacity of 200 people, and then it will have opportunity to take care of 400 citizens of Dubrovnik that will stay in their houses, live there, but they will have daily care. At the same time that someone is taking care of them, visiting daily, delivering the lunch, giving a health care, and this is part of the project.
One of the ways that cities like Dubrovnik are improving is by successfully accessing EU funds, and he's going to explain a little bit more what Dubrovnik is doing in terms of accessing funds from the EU.
Many projects, I would underline the one, I would say the most important, it's a water purification machine which gives Dubrovnik 365 days within the year clean and the water safe to drink. For years we have a problem when we had rainy days and then the river Ombla becomes muddy, and due to that the water was not very good for drinking. And after we implement water purification machines 4 years ago, from then now we have 365 days clean water. Also, considering the EU funds, I would say that implementation of the new sewage and water system within Dubrovnik, with the city of Dubrovnik, more than 80 kilometers of new sewage system, 65 kilometers of water system has been implemented in the last 6 years.
One of my favourite places in Dubrovnik is also a recipient of EU funds, and that's the Adriatic complex just outside of Ploče Gates, just to the east of the old town. In 1377, the Republic of Ragusa or Dubrovnik became the first state in the world to have organised quarantine on a couple of the islands off here, and this was the original quarantine station. It's been beautifully restored into a multi-purpose events centre, and so you'll have concerts down here, the Linja, they perform down here, food festivals and so on. And we first came here, the first ever Digital Nomad conference in Croatia was held here in October 2020, and we had one of these beautiful things to host it. And so this is one more example of how the city is accessing EU funds to make some incredible heritage buildings come back to life, a multi-purpose use 700-800 years later. We live in the digital age, and cities like Dubrovnik are using technology to deal with the daily administration and way of life here. So can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening in terms of the Smart City project?
We implemented different projects in order for us to know at any point where we are and where we should be. One of the projects is people counter. So we are now within the old city, and at any point we know how many people is currently in the old city. So we put the gaps on and limitation on the number that we can take. We created a study, carrying capacity study, where we said, okay, around 11,000 people can be at the same time in the old city. With this people counter, we actually see how many is currently here, what is the flow during the day, and are we making any mistakes considering the management of the tourism, of the historical side. Also, we implemented a system that we call bus web shop or bus web shop. Every tour that is coming to Dubrovnik on daily excursion and etc., they need to pre-book their arrival. So every half an hour, 7 slots for the buses, either arrival or departure. So you need to pre-book both of those because otherwise you will pay high fines if you do not make a pre-booking. On the days when we see that we will have more cruise ship passengers visiting the old city, then we are lowering down the possibility of booking Dubrovnik daily tour. With this, we are managing the flow. DuPass is again one great project that we firstly created in order to manage the flow. It's a digital Dubrovnik cultural card that when you buy it, you have opportunity to visit Dubrovnik walls, all other monuments, historical monuments of Dubrovnik, and as well you have 2 bus cards for using public transportation. Why that project is very important for us? From next year to 25, at the moment when you are buying Dubrovnik Pass, you will have to take the date and the hour of visit. Okay. And it will give you an option to choose 2 dates. With this, again, we are working on a flow. eDubrovnik is a system that we are actually opening to the citizens, prior to the citizens, for them at any point to see what we as a city administration are doing. For them to be our best communal officers, because at any point they can take a photo of something that they think it's a bad, report on our site, and our special service, it's immediately taking care of that. And also what we implemented is a participative budget, where every part of Dubrovnik is deciding what is the best project for themselves to be delivered in the year to come. And with this, democracy is ongoing every day, and actually they are choosing what is the best for the area of their living and what project should be qualified. second point is we are in process of, again, using EU funds, building first park and ride system that will, at the first step, give 400 parking spaces, and at the second stage, 1,000 extra, so 1,400 total when we finish within 3 years' time. Then we will give a service to all of those that want to come to Dubrovnik. You will have to park just above Dubrovnik, take a public bus, and go with the public bus in the city. So we will start with the project spring next year.
Children are the future, obviously, and education is very, very important. Not everybody works in tourism in Croatia. And tell us what you're doing in terms of education and building of new schools and so on.
Of the projects that we were using EU funds, targeting two different groups. The first one, kindergartens. Thanks to the EU funds, more than 300 new children were enlisted in the program of the preschool. And that was very important for us. And now we are in process of building a new kindergarten, which will ensure 100 more spaces than we had before. Considering the schools, in these last 7 years of my mandate, we built 2 new schools. And we are in process of starting building a third new, which will ensure that Dubrovnik, all schools, become in one shift.
Dubrovnik has a very proud sporting tradition, especially in water polo, and that tradition looks set to continue with more investment in infrastructure and sporting facilities. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
We built 2 new sport halls for the schools in the last 7 years. Also a big soccer field or football field, which has not been built for 40 or something years in Dubrovnik. We are now in process of creating again one more soccer field for U8, so for competition for children up to the 8 years of age.
One of the things I really like about Dubrovnik is the efforts that are being made to move tourism away from the concentration of the old town into other parts of the city. It's just over 5 years now since an industrial space was taken over by the Red History Museum, one of the most innovative museums in Croatia. And today it has a global acclaim and it's one of the best museums in Dubrovnik for sure. And right next to it now we have the former Tuk factory, which closed down a few years ago. And this now is being converted into public spaces for creative art. We have a new public library, as you can see here, being built. We have the first digital nomad co-working space also in this complex. And they're now developing other artistic and creative places for people to express themselves and so on. And so this is, one old industrial complex which is slowly being transformed for creative art and for tourism. And this is a nice direction which Dubrovnik's going in. So there we have it, Dubrovnik, the living city in 2024, away from tourism, looking at aspects that affect the lives of citizens and how they're managing the particular challenges that Dubrovnik faces as a major tourist destination. We were looking at things like EU funds, infrastructure, education, building of schools, resolving the parking problem, accommodation. There are multiple challenges for Dubrovnik, and my impression, having followed this city for 11 years now, is that although things aren't perfect, they're definitely on the right track, and I look forward to seeing how things evolve in the future.